Welcome to Project Inner Leadership, where women build and become. This is the podcast for ambitious women in business who are building, leading, and achieving, and who know they are meant for more. Here, we don't just talk about strategy, we talk about consciousness, self-leadership, emotional mastery. Because the business you build will never outgrow the woman you become. If you're ready to expand beyond your current limits, to dissolve inner resistance, and to manifest a business and a life that truly reflects your deepest vision, then you're here in the right place. This is about thinking beyond what feels realistic, building a business without burning out, leading beyond fear, and creating from clarity instead of pressure. I'm Christina, and this is Project Inner Leadership. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new podcast episode. I have a super interesting topic today, which I would like to talk about, and it's about resistances. Resistance in our life and in different life areas. And I also would like to talk about a story, which I have already talked about in one of my past podcast episodes. I don't know if you have listened to it. It was about when I was super overwhelmed with my business and my child because I was a full-time mother and also I was full-time employed in my own company. And I was, running into a burnout and I didn't even know how I can get out of this situation. So I want to talk about this story again, but not so much about how I felt in this situation, more about the money perspective. And something incredible happened to me when I realized that there was a big resistance inside of me and how I overcame it in order to make the money flow again. There is something incredibly important to understand when it comes to the areas in your life that don't feel the way you want them to feel. Whether it is your business where money doesn't seem to flow the way it used to, or maybe you are already in the process in building a business and the money doesn't come in as you would have expected before. Or in other life areas, for example, your relationships where love, respect, or connection feel maybe distant at the moment, or even your health when your body seems to constantly struggle with symptoms, infections, or chronic conditions. All of these experiences are not random, they are reflections and they're actually indicators that something within us is in resistance. And we always imagine resistance as we see it in a picture of a big stone is in our way. But in fact, resistance is not always loud and visible in the first place. It doesn't always appear as a clear thought or a conscious decision or as an obstacle in our life, like as I've mentioned, a stone in our way. Very often, it lives quietly within our system, shaping our reality without us even realizing it. And sometimes we only begin to notice it when things stop flowing, like when money stops flowing, when love stops flowing, when our health stops flowing. And now I would like to go back to this story, which I have talked about in one of my last podcast episodes. I experienced this very clearly in my own life. It was the point where I had built the life that many people would consider the ultimate goal. I had a successful business. I had created a financial stability. We made between 150 to 250K a month. And I had reached a point where I no longer needed to work in the way I used to do before. I had delegated my responsibilities. I built a team. And even in my personal life, I had a lot of support. I got a nanny, which helped me with my child. I had help in the household. So I truly gained back my space, the space that I had once dreamed of so much. Because when I started my business, my ultimate goal was freedom. But when I built my business, I ended up having less time for myself and my family than I would probably had if I was an employed. in another company and working for someone else. I ended up in a burnout, and then I said, okay, no, I don't want to do this any longer. I really want to have the freedom. That was the reason why I even started a business. So I don't want to give up now. I really want to achieve this freedom. And long story short, in the end, I got the support by building a team and by getting help for my house, for my baby, etc. Yes. Now you would think, okay, why she's complaining? She got everything she wanted. Yes, but then something happened which was super unexpected to me. As I stepped into this new reality, suddenly my business began to shift. Suddenly my money flow slowed down. And I remember this was in December, for example. I still remember we made 160K. And then when we stepped into January, into the new year, and by the way, we didn't change anything. We didn't change our marketing. We didn't change our processes. Like everything was running the same as before. But suddenly in January, everything changed. Like we dropped our company from 150K to 250K a month. We dropped down to 50K. And I know maybe for some people that still seems a lot, but for a company which has almost 20 employees, that's a lot of cost going out. And we also pay around 20 to 30K a month for marketing. So by that you can see, okay, 50K, that's not a lot, right? And I was sitting down and I was really in a deep shock and I didn't know what is the heck going on here. Now, when I actually get out of my company, I try to enjoy the freedom I just gained now. After so many years of hustling, suddenly my business goes down. We attracted really weird clients, like clients that didn't even have financial means and they were lying to us that they had the financial means and then they didn't pay their bills. Like super weird people. I don't understand what's going on here. And I tell you, in that moment, it would have been so easy for me to panic, like to become my panic, because I felt a deep anxiety inside of me in that moment. But if I wasn't that conscious, it would have been so easy to really become that panic and to destroy everything and go back to the old business structure. Me doing everything, me juggling everything, pushing through everything, and not having the time that I needed for myself, ending up in burnout again, not spending so much money for employees, firing my nanny, firing my cleaner, firing my kitchen chef, just in order to save the money for my company again. So it would have been really easy to believe this panic and to become the panic, because it is so easy to assume that something was going wrong externally. And me trying to fix it through more action, more control, more effort, and feeding the anxiety inside of me. But instead of doing that, instead of becoming the anxiety, I instead did something very different. I want to tell you about this technique that I'm using and which you can also use if there is something in your life where you see it's not in the flow and there might be a resistance inside of you. Your life is just a reflection of your inner world. So, the technique I'm going to show you now is you can also do that in a little bit of a meditation, like going in a state, in a very calm and relaxed state, um, sitting down and turn yourself inwards. That's what I did. I sat down and I turned myself inwards. And I allowed myself to fully imagine the life I truly wanted to live. Not just the version that looks good on the paper, but the version that makes me feel the freedom, the real freedom that I want to experience. A life where I move through my days with ease, where I choose what I do based on what I feel called to, where I have time for myself, for my body, for my inner world, for my own presence. And if you try to stay in this feeling, you will feel if your body, your heart, your inside opens, or if there is something that creates tension from inside. It makes you feel tight. And that's what happened to me when I went into this visualization. I felt the life that I was dreaming of. And then suddenly, in the middle of having such a good feeling, I felt in my stomach that there was something shrinking. We all carry a lot of resistances inside of us. It can come from our childhood, it can come from our believing systems, from society, or from whatever it can come. But there can be a resistance inside of us that is exactly blocking this manifestation. Resistances are always a door to our life that we wanna live. In my case, I could feel there was a resistance inside of me. There was something inside of me that wasn't ready to live this lifestyle right now. There was a voice that kept saying, you cannot live like this. You cannot spend this kind of money and at the same time, you're not doing anything. You need to work. You need to earn money. You have to work hard to earn money. You cannot just sit around and enjoy your life and money just flows through your window. And this voice didn't come from nowhere. It came from everything that I had been taught, from growing up in a system that equates value with effort and worth with hard work. And at the same time, my nervous system was reacting to it, obviously, because this new life, even though it was exactly what I wanted, was unfamiliar to my system. And anything unfamiliar feels unsafe to the body. So my system responded with tension, discomfort, and fear. And when I allowed myself to feel deeper, I could sense what was truly there. There was a fear of losing everything, a fear of when I give up the control in my company, when I start to rest, I will lose everything. It was a big fear that this shift would destroy what I had built, a fear that by stepping into ease, everything would collapse. This is not a sign you should stop if you feel it. This is just a sign to sit down one moment, go inside of you, and see what's going on there. Don't try to eliminate the fear. So I was not eliminating the fear. I didn't try to push it away, but I allowed it to be there. I never push fear away. When I feel fear or any other feeling like anger, sadness, I always try to take a moment for myself. I sit down, I close my eyes, um, just that I can get out from my head into my body. So I travel with my consciousness out from my head into my body because in our society, we are so trained to be all the time in our head and to train our thinking a lot. We give our mind and our thinking a lot of power. So I try to shift this consciousness into my body and see what's going on there. And I never push any feeling away. I never suppress any feeling because remember, if you listen to my podcast for a while, you will understand our feelings, our emotions are our doors to our greatest potential and to the life that we really want to live. So I gave the fear space. I stopped treating it as something that needed to disappear. And instead, I recognized it for what it was. Just it's simply fear, it's a feeling. It's a part of my system trying to protect me. And that's super normal, that's super human. The same is true for your mind, your body, and your nervous system. They're not working against you, they're functioning perfectly. Even the thoughts, the worries, the stories that seem to pull you back, they all have a purpose. And the moment you stop resisting them, something shifts. And that was happening to me. When I began to move into a space of permission, I gave a permission for everything that was present in this moment, the fear, the doubt, the discomfort, allowing your system to respond the way it does, understanding that your nervous system is not showing your reality, it's just responding to the unknown. Because your consciousness may already be aligned with the life you want to live, but your body, your mind, your nervous system, they are the last to catch up. Your consciousness is already there where you want to be. But your mind, your body, they're not convinced. They're still living the old. And this is where so many people get confused. They think something is wrong with them. They think that discomfort means they're on the wrong path. They think it's their gut feeling and that tells them to not move on. But in reality, it simply means they are expanding beyond what they have known before. And in that moment, the most powerful thing you can do is to be gentle with yourself, to meet yourself with understanding, to take that fear, metaphorically, by the hand, to say, you are allowed to be here. You don't need to leave. You and me are moving forward together. Because when you do that, something begins to open. And that's when the resistance softens inside of you, because the energy starts to move again. And suddenly things begin to flow. And that's exactly what happened in my business. Honestly, without changing anything, like literally me just sitting down, not forcing anything, not pushing any harder, without trying to control the outcome, trying to control my employees, firing my employees. I just sat down, went inside of me, imagined and visualized the life I wanted, feel it, and see what's going on inside of me. If there is a feeling popping up, if there is a sign popping up that could show me if there is a resistance. That's all I did. And it took me maybe 10 to 15 minutes, not more. And then when the resistance shows up, just going into the feeling, not analyzing it, not judging it, just going into the feeling, allowing the feeling to be there and just feel it, giving it its space. Sometimes when you do that, you can even see shapes or colors. You see the resistance in form of sometimes I see a cat, sometimes I see even a red light. Some other people, they see maybe a stone. I have already heard people seeing plants or other type of animals. That can also happen to you. And sometimes when you feel the feeling, you can even ask the feeling or the resistance. You can even ask it, what important message do you have for me? And sometimes it gives you an answer. Sometimes it will not give you an answer. It really depends on your individual situation. I have worked with people and I have seen that sometimes they get like really, really amazing answers, like when the feeling just tells them, I'm just here to show you your own power, or I'm just here to remind you how valuable you are. So you don't need to be afraid. Your feeling never harms you. Your feeling is only here for opening a door for you that brings you to the life you want. And just with this simple technique, my business completely turned around again. We got in the right clients again, the money flew again. Honestly, the flow returned within a couple of days, naturally, without changing anything. The moment you stop resisting, the moment you begin to allow, you create a flow again. And from that flow, everything begins to change in your life. If this episode resonated with you, I invite you to take a moment. Not to do more, not to fix anything, but simply to notice what moved inside of you. Growth does not start with doing, it starts with awareness. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. And if you feel called to, share it with another woman who is building or becoming. Because we don't need to hustle harder, we don't need to silence our emotions. We simply need to lead ourselves differently. Thank you for being here, thank you for doing this work, and remember, the way you lead yourself determines what you build. I'll see you in the next episode.